So welcome to the video about how to remove the Range Rover glove box assembly, not just the flap, the whole assembly, so that you can get to what's behind it, or in my case the CD changer here, which isn't working very well. So I'm going to take that out and replace it for an iPod cable. There's quite a lot to do just to get this assembly out because it's held in by these panels here, and you need to get this one off. Thankfully you don't need to take the top of the dash off, which is quite good, but this panel also needs to come out. So there's quite a few panels and it's quite fiddly, but it is doable and it doesn't take too long. So I'm just going to talk you through what we're doing. I'm going to start by removing all of the screws around the inner lip of the glove box assembly, and hopefully, as you can see, they are Torx screws. Okay, that's the 5 Torx screws out, which come out with a T20 size bit. Next is going to be to remove this side flap, which you can simply just lever off, being careful not to break it obviously, but there's nothing actually screwing it on or holding it on. And then we'll look to work on these 2 panels here. Okay, as you can see, just sort of levered that off and it literally just pulls out, and it's clips that are holding it in place. That now gives us access to the back, where we're going to take out this vent with the cup holder. I'm going to work on the cup holder first. I've got a couple of screws to get to as well. There's one there and there's one there. And if you look into the side, okay, hopefully you can now see that little bolt that's buried just at the back of the cup holder, which we have to take off to slide the cup holder out. So when you've undone that bolt that sits at the back there, you should be able to just push out the cup holder with a bit of force, and then the clips will push down and you can take the whole assembly out. Be careful though, because it does tend to like coming flying out of its own accord, so make sure you're ready to catch it if you're working on your own. Okay, so next we're going to remove these 2 bolts here that are holding in the vent assembly. The vent assembly is much harder to get in than it is to get out, because when you have to put it back in, you're kind of negotiating all of these 3 separate pieces of trim here, and you can probably see the war wounds previously from when mine's been done. So that's just one to be aware of, that it will take a bit of fettling and it's not an easy job, but it's much easier to get out. So we'll just go ahead and undo those 2 bolts. Okay, so next is to get this vent out, and there are 4 little tiny latches. I'll try and zoom in there. You see them there. You have to pull them right out to then be able to pull the vent out. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've bent those 4 little nodules back in, and with a bit of tugging you can now remove the vent and get to another bolt that's holding in the air vent assembly. Okay, so you should now just be able to pull that out, but if you do have the Vogue model, be careful when you pull that out with the light there. Okay, so next need to remove this little cubby hole down here, and you can see it's got a screw behind there, and so just going to go ahead and take that off as well. And there's the screw located behind the plastic cover. Okay, so next I'm going to remove this kick panel here, which will in turn move this one here. So you have to take both of these out really to get this out, because you have to pull it down to get it out. There's also some panels right underneath at the back, which you probably can't see, like a long thin plastic panel, which will also have to drop down, which enables you to do that if you've got all this removed. So really there's nothing holding these in, just plastic clips. So gently with a lever bar you can just pry both of these off. And just to show you in the back of the car, this is what these 2 panels look like underneath. So you have these movable plastic clips here, which are really handy for when you're lining it back up to put it back in. And this is the plastic kick panel. Again, nothing much holding that on, just a couple of locators and some clipping. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move this cubby hole now, so just going to take that screw out, and hopefully that's the only other retaining screw, so we can just whip that off. And yep, sure enough, that's just going to pull out like that. Okay, now we've got slightly better access to the footwell of the car. So the next panel we need to remove is this one that's up here. There's 2 plastic retaining screws, and then there's a couple of Torx screws as well. There's one, and there's another one on the other panel there, which you're also going to need to get off because this whole panel here has to come off, and that's all one piece. So we're going to go ahead and remove those screws next. So this is one of two plastic screws that holds this panel in under the footwell, as well as the two torque screws that we take off. They can be a bit tricky if they've been taken in and out a few times before, so you might find you just have to leave them out or pull them out with a pair of pliers. You also need to disconnect this light, the footwell light, as you take the panel off. So let's now release this bit of trim, but now we need to release this bit of trim as well because it's kind of holding it in, and that is just a matter of pulling it out. You can see there's nothing really holding it on other than a few clips, and then you've kind of dismembered the bottom half of the car. Okay, so when all the stuff at the bottom's off, we kind of need to turn our attention back to the glove box. What we need to do next is you have to remove this latch here. And I'll just grab the torch and show you that underneath there are two awkwardly located screws which you have to get out. This light also pulls out and then you can disconnect it, so just leave that out with a screwdriver. So when you've removed the light and the latch, you should now to be able to give your glove box a bit of a wiggle and eventually get it out of place. Unfortunately, that's not the end of it. If you want to get the CD changer out, you need to then remove this screw here, this one, and the same the other side, there. And then you should be able to push the unit through, which is poking through these vents here. Push it forward, there's plenty of cable here, and then you can just disconnect it. So there's the two screws that hold in the CD changer. You pop them away, and then you can just slide the unit forward. And eventually get your hand underneath and take it out. And then you can disconnect it there. Now if you are removing your CD changer because of problems with it, I would recommend you don't put those two screws back in, because otherwise when you fix it and put it back in and it breaks again, it's a sod to get out. If you leave those screws out, then you can just slide it forward if you need to get to it again, rather than go through all of this taking half a Range Rover apart to actually get to one component. All in all, this has taken about 30 minutes and this is only the second time I've done it. So you should be able to do it with a reasonable level of competence in half an hour. Putting it back is about the same if you don't have any issues with your trim. I've had a couple of fights with a couple of bits of trim and it took a bit longer to put it back together. But you could get this job done within the hour if you're good enough. Good luck!